Masterclass. And we're here for 4 days and we're streaming live on Facebook and LinkedIn and even on YouTube. Now, life will never be the same again. So, over these next few days, I'm going to show you how to get from where you're at now to where you actually really want to be. We'll explore what's holding you back and why, and then I'm going to show you how to change that. So, before we start, just make sure you've got your pen and paper ready because there'll be some writing to do. And if you haven't already got the workbook, then message us your email address and we'll send it to you. It's really the written work that's going to make the biggest difference for you because writing fires up different parts of your brain to listening, and you need both really to get a proper result. What happens when you write, it slows down your thoughts, so you become more aware of them and you can be looking at them objectively. So important to get your pen and paper and get that workbook. So pop the questions if you have any questions in the comments, and I will get back to you after the session today. So my name's Caddy. Most of my logistics connections will know me as Kath. That's a whole different story. I'll tell you that one time. And I'm a mindset and success coach with the Proctor Gallagher Institute. Now, you may know Bob Proctor, one of the founders from the hit movie The Secret, and I help people get what they really want. And if they don't know what they want, I help them to find out and then get it. So I'm really excited to be here with you. I love this stuff. And you turned up, and there's a reason for that, right? So let's cut the BS. You're here because you want to change something. Now, you might not know what you want, or you might know what you want, but you don't know how to get it. Or you know what you want, and you've started on the journey, but it just ain't happening. So ask yourself, how long have you been wanting what you're thinking about? And there's more to life, right? So when are you going to make that change? Because if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? Important questions, right? Okay, so many of my clients are actually very busy executives and they work 60 plus hours a week, and a lot of the time really quite stressful jobs. So they're missing out on time with their loved ones. And even if they are spending time with their family and friends, their mind tends to be at work on what needs to be done. So lots of them work at the weekends, and it's either to catch up because they didn't get around to everything during the week, or it's to get a head start for the next week. But most of my clients were working, not anymore, were working most of the weekends. So does that sound familiar? So how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you feel on a Monday morning? Every morning, really. Are you dragging yourself out of bed and you're getting on with the day? And are you wishing the week away for the weekend because you will have some time off? And are you really tired? Maybe you're fed up and you just want more out of life, right? So I was actually myself very, very much like that, not a very, very long time ago, really. So let me ask you quite a profound question here. What are you exchanging your life for? Because every moment that we live, we get closer to the end, right? So what are you doing with your time? Now I have a sound timer here. The thing is that just keeps going, right? So that's your life. But we don't actually know how much sand is in there, right? So one of my colleagues always says, how many Christmases have you got left? Some of you will probably know who said that. Um, and really, if you don't start to do something about what you want right now, then when are you going to do it? Are you going to do it next week? Are you going to do it next month, next year? And how many times have you said that to yourself? Oh, well, I'll do it when this happens, or I'll do it when I finish this. But tomorrow never comes, does it? So let's see what we can help you with today and very quickly start making some changes for you. So you might want to change something, but you don't know how. Or you believe that you can't because you've got responsibilities and you're busy, right? A lot of us will say, well, I would really like that, but I can't because. Okay, now the because is an excuse. It's not a reason, it's an excuse. So how are you going to create more time freedom, and how are you going to be able to do that working less hours and not be stressed, and then still bring in the money for your loved ones so that they can have what they deserve, right? All difficult questions. Well, that's what I'm going to show you. And that's why you turned up, isn't it, really? To find out how you can change something so that the things in your life can change for you. So the next few days, we'll talk about the importance of setting goals. What is a goal all about? We'll talk about, like I said, what's holding you back, which is really your conditioning, and we call those paradigms. So we'll get into that way more in day 2, and then how you get past those. So we'll lay some of the foundations today, so that in the next couple of days you can really start to make some big shifts already. So first, I'd like you to write down a situation in your life that is not how you want it to be. Now go into a little bit of detail. And if you can't write so fast because your thoughts are faster than your writing, then hold that thought and write it down after the session. Now, you don't need to worry if you can't make all of the sessions live, because you can watch them all on replay on my Facebook and my LinkedIn profiles. And we will send you all the links of the recordings as well after the 4 days. So now I want you to think about a win of the week, something good that happened over the last week, and write that down. Now, how do you feel when you think about that? Pretty good, right? Now, isn't it awesome that that happened? Great, right? Now, sometimes it's difficult for us to think of a win of the week because we're so busy with life, we're so much on autopilot that we don't really even stop and think about all the good stuff that happens. And we tend to veer towards complaining about the stuff that's not going how we want it. So, really allow yourself a few times a day to just take stock and go, okay, this is something good that really happened here. Feel great, right? So, let's get into it. So, very quickly, a little bit about me. So I grew up in Holland. My mum was actually in and out of mental hospitals from me being about 10 years old. So home life was a little bit shaky, to say the least. And, we have very, very good support network, thank God. But of course, that did affect me and my sister as young girls. So I moved to England when I was 20. And I was really quite confident in my professional ability, but not feeling very good about myself and not very confident in me personally, not really feeling worthy of the good things. And how many people feel like that, right? Most of us feel that we're not really worthy of the good things. So when I moved to England, I actually lived in a place for a very long time that I really, really didn't like for many, many years. And I was quite severely depressed for a long time and suffered from anxiety. Now, most people didn't know this, because but that was really what was going on inside, and underneath the surface. So maybe you feel like that too, right? Everything seems all right, and you project to the outside world that everything's all right, but underneath, all these things are going on. So I had my son 20 years ago, and I divorced his dad when he wasn't even 1 year old. And this has made me laugh when I wrote this down because I mean, my son wasn't 1 year old, not his dad. Um, and then what happened was I ended up in a what I thought initially was a very good relationship and moved to a lovely area in England, but actually turned out to be a very abusive and toxic relationship. So that made my depression and my anxiety and my lack of confidence even worse. So eventually I did get out of that. No confidence, and 90K lighter. Lesson learned, right? And what I have actually learned since then is that, it was me attracting somebody like that into my life because of the way I was feeling about myself, because we attract really how we feel and what we think. So I was thinking for quite a while, there must be more to life than this, right? But I didn't really know where to start, or even how to go about feeling better. I actually remember standing in front of my bedroom window in my old house, um, and just thinking it must just be so nice to just maybe every now and again wake up once or twice a week feeling good rather than dragging myself out of bed and getting through the day. Now, things very rapidly changed when I really started to understand how life works. And it's through the thinking into results training that I now facilitate as a coach myself. So, a lot of what I'm talking about is actually based on that material. And it made really such a huge difference, like night and day. People don't recognize me from how I was just a few short years ago. And all I want to really do is share that knowledge and understanding with other people, with you, so that you can also change your life for the better. Because the thing is, if you can think of something, if you come up with an idea, that means by default that you can be, do, and have it. Because the idea would not come up into your mind if you couldn't do it. It's already inside of you, it's bubbling to get out. So, as an example, I never thought of creating the iPhone because that wasn't my thing. So that idea didn't come up in my mind. Anyway, very shortly after starting that training, I found out then I had breast cancer and I had 3 operations, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, etc., etc. Got through that, and I'm very happy to say that I'm completely fit and healthy now. But what it made me realize, I actually say, and people find this sometimes a bit strange, it was one of the best things that happened to me in my life, because what it made me realize is that life really is amazing. It is a gift, and we absolutely do deserve to live the best life ever. Right? We're here to feel good. We're not here to suffer. We're here to feel good and live a good life. But how do we do it? And it's difficult to even think about that when we are really so conditioned in how we live our lives the way that we do. So my life turned around completely, very, very quickly. I quadrupled my income. I have no stress in my life. I bought my dream home a couple of years ago. Well, not even a couple of years ago. I put my son through commercial training. So the people who've been following me on my social media, I do post every now and again about that hashtag proud mama. So that was a dream of his since he was 5 or 6 years old. And he's now actually started his pilot training. I just bought my first dream car as well last month. So that's great. So all of that's amazing, right? I have great relationships with my family and my friends. I'm fit and healthy. And most importantly, I'm happy. And I wake up every day feeling good and looking forward to my day. Now, the question is, do you? Do you? Do you wake up excited and looking forward to it? Do you go to bed on a Sunday evening and you're looking forward to the week? Possibly not, right? So, how did I do it? And how do my clients do it? Well, it starts, I suppose, with realizing that success is actually a system. It's really a step-by-step process. And if you follow the rules, you can achieve whatever it is you want. So success is really governed by universal or scientific laws. And once you understand those laws, we can get them to work in our favor. We'll talk much more about that in the next few days. Now, it's also really important to understand that it's not your results that make you successful. Actually, your results come after you've been successful. So, for instance, you get to the fitness level that you want after you've successfully done your workouts and your exercises. Now, you got the promotion at work after you successfully did your job. You get the money after you've successfully provided a service. You get a delicious cake after you've successfully put together the individual ingredients, right? So really important to understand that we are successful already. We're successful before we achieve our goals. So let's start to talk about goals now. Now, think of a goal that you've achieved in the past. It could be years ago or it could be in the last few weeks. Now, have you thought of one? Okay, good. Now, the reason you achieved that goal isn't through luck or isn't because you were born into a certain environment. The reason you achieved it was because there were certain ingredients that were present. So let's take a look at those. So you came up with the idea, right? You thought of it. And remember that if you can think of it, you can be, do, and have it, right? So the idea came up. Then at some level, you believed that that was possible. Now, you probably didn't know how you were going to do it, but you thought that it could happen. At some level, you had a belief that you could do it. You really wanted it. Then you decided that it was going to happen. You were going to go for it. Now, because of these initial ingredients, you started to take some different actions. So I'll give the gym as an example. That's because I've been going to the gym and I'm getting the results that I want. So, like, if you wanted to get fit, then you started to inquire maybe about the classes at the gym. And you got yourself some training gear. Maybe you got yourself some running shoes if you were going to go running. So you started to take actions towards achieving that goal. And then what happened is you created some new habits. So, for instance, your habit might have been that you, I don't know, hit the snooze button in the morning and had 5 bars of chocolate for your breakfast. So you created some new habits and you started to go to the gym instead. Or maybe you went for a run or you went on a cycle ride. So you had the idea, you believed it was possible at some level, you really wanted it, you decided you were going to go for it, you started to take different actions to move you towards it, you created some new habits, and then you were consistent and you developed persistence. So you were consistent in those new habits and you persisted. And then after a little while, you started to see the results. Now, we really tend to do all of this very unconsciously. Right? We're not consciously aware that this is really what's happening. This is sort of the process that we go through, the ingredients that are needed. But the same principles apply to absolutely everything that we want. Now, the trouble is that we are taught from a very young age to argue for our limitations rather than for our abilities to achieve what we want, right? So, Bob always talks about the report card syndrome. So and I remember obviously went to school in Holland, and you would get marked 0 to 10, and 10 would be the best. And if you had a 5, that was a fail, and a 6 was just scraping through on a pass. So I would come home with my report card, like many of my friends, and I maybe had 10 subjects, and 8 of them I had 8, 9, and 10, and then maybe I had 1 7 and 1 6, and everybody focused on the 6 and the 7s, right? So we are taught from a young age to focus on what isn't going so well, to focus on the negative, to argue for our limitations, to think about why we can't do something rather than why we can do something. And we tell ourselves that, right? We tell ourselves, well, I'd like to do that, but I can't because, as I said before, rather than ask ourselves, how can I do this? So the first step in the process is to actually set a goal. So why are goals so important? Well, we're human beings and we're part of nature. So when you look at nature, you'll notice that nature is always growing. The universe is constantly expanding. So being part of nature, it is completely natural for us to want more. In fact, we are what we call goal-seeking organisms. And for us to feel good, we have to be growing. If we're not growing, we don't feel good. Now, look around you. Everyone is always looking for more and better. Better homes, better food, better income, better health, better relationships, more profits, run, cycle, swim faster, get quicker Amazon deliveries, get quicker grocery deliveries. Everyone is always looking for more and better because that's our innate nature. That's what we naturally do. And really, that more and that better is an expression of the uniqueness that is inside of you. And of course, that needs to be expressed, right? So, life really is for well-being. Nature most of the time corrects itself. So life is for you. It's pro-life, it's for well-being, it's for you. So really, don't you owe it to life to be and to do and to have more, right? Because that's you expressing life. Now, the thing is that you're living the way that you're living right now. So maybe you're too busy, maybe you're short of money, maybe you're not so fit, maybe your relationships aren't the way they want. You're living the way you're living right now because that's how you know how to live. You know how to do that, right? And that's what you currently believe is possible. That's how you see yourself right now. So effectively, we'd call it a blueprint, right? So you have a blueprint and you're living according to that blueprint. So this is about your conditioning, how you're programmed, how you're conditioned, the beliefs that you hold about what you think is and isn't possible. Now think of this. So someone who's working maybe 30 hours a week and earns $100,000 a year. Well, they think differently to someone who's working 60 hours a week and earns $100,000 a year. So one works 30 hours and the other works 60 hours and they both earn the same money. Someone who lives on the street thinks very, very different than someone who's a multimillionaire. And someone who's fit and trim thinks very, very differently to someone who's unhealthy and overweight. But the thing is, we all have 24 hours in the day. Everybody has the same time in the day, and we all have opportunities. So it's really our thinking, not our circumstances, not our environment. It's our thinking that was making the biggest difference to how we're living our life. So really all you need to do is to become aware of how to do things differently, to start seeing yourself as that person that's already achieved that goal. Start thinking about that person that already has your wish fulfilled. Okay, so that's it. See you tomorrow. No, I'm only joking. Let's explore it a little bit further. So talking about goals. So what is the purpose of a goal? Well, a goal gives you direction. Without a goal, we're going to be lost, right? So you wouldn't drive out of your driveway in your car without knowing where you were going, would you? But most of us are living our lives without knowing where we're going, really, or we're living our lives going somewhere that we don't want to go. Okay, so maybe we want to go to London, but we've set our sat nav for Edinburgh. Well, you're never going to get to London if your sat nav's taking you to Edinburgh. Right? So we either have no or we're moving in a direction where we don't really want to be. Now, achieving a goal is great, right? The result that we get is great, but it is not the true purpose of a goal. The true purpose of a goal is to make you grow. It makes you grow into the person that we need to be to live that goal. And because we are goal-seeking organisms, and for us to feel good, like I said before, we have to grow. So if we're not growing, we're actually disintegrating. And ultimately, disintegration will lead to dis-ease, always hyphenate the word, dis-ease, and ultimately death, which is why it feels uncomfortable. So every one of us knows someone who's depressed, right? Maybe you have been depressed yourself, like I was a while ago. But really, the only reason someone is depressed is because they don't have an exciting goal to work towards. They're not growing, and it's because they're not growing that they're becoming depressed. Now, just imagine for a second, humor me. Imagine that there are no constraints. Right? Imagine that everything is possible. I'm your fairy godmother, and you can have 3 wishes, and everything is possible. And imagine that you have all the resources that you need. And imagine that what you want is not impossible. Just give it a few seconds to get rid of the constraints and just free up your mind, right? Now, write down something that you really want. And you might have wanted it for a while, but it's not happening. So write down something that you really want. And if you don't know, call me and I'll help you find out. Okay, so let's take a look at different types of goals. So in my training, we work with only one type of goal, but there are actually 3 types. So the first type is an A-type goal. And an A-type goal is something that you already know how to do, maybe like buying a car, because you've done it before, you know how to do it. And there's nothing wrong with an A-type goal, and by all means set an A-type goal, right? Because it's sort of the day-to-day stuff that we're doing. Now, the B-type goal is something that you think you can achieve. So people who believe that they're stretching themselves tend to set a B-type goal. So it's something you believe you can achieve, and you know that certain things will need to fall into place for it to happen. So you probably need to make a plan, and if this happens and that happens, and such a body does such a thing, and such a body does another thing, then you know that you can achieve it. But that's really quite boring, right? Because there's no real inspiration in that one. And what happens is that the first hurdle or the first couple of obstacles, we give up. And this is actually why a lot of people stop and start. So they start a project and then they stop, and then they start something else and then they stop, and then they start something else again and then they stop. So we all know people like this, and we've all probably done it ourselves, right? But that's why it's because that B-type goal isn't exciting enough to keep us going through the uncomfortable part of the journey. When they don't have that burning desire to achieve it, that real want to achieve it. And a lot of the time, it might not even be your goal, right? It may be something that someone else wants you to do, and you're not really up for it, but you think you should because of whatever reason. And so B-type goals, in fact, quite dangerous goals, really. So we don't really want to be looking at goals like that. So what we work with is what we call a C-type goal. And a C-type goal is something that you really, really want. It's something you haven't done before, and you don't know how to do it, but it excites you and it delights you. You really want it, but at the same time, it scares the bejeebies out of you. Right? So think of that thing you've just written down. And if it makes you feel excited, does it make you feel excited? But it makes you feel scared at the same time as well. Then guess what? You got the right goal. And if it doesn't make you feel like that, then it isn't yet a C-type goal. So you need to stretch yourself a bit further. You need to get yourself out of your comfort zone, because it's outside of our comfort zone where our growth happens, right? And if I keep, on the theme of doing the gym, so if anybody's ever had a personal trainer at the gym, what happens is that they will show you, they're the experts, right? So they will show you how to do the exercises, and then they might tell you, okay, you need to do 10 sit-ups. And you start, and after 5 or 6, you think, oh my God, I can't do anymore. But your PT goes, do more, 3 more, do 3 more, and you do 3 more. You're very uncomfortable, but it's actually in that uncomfortable stage that you're building your strength. It's in that uncomfortable stage that we're growing. Think of children who have growing pains. Right? So all this really is about what you want. It is not about how you're going to achieve it, because actually you don't know that, right? You don't know how you're going to achieve it because it's new and you've never done it before. It's like when you started to learn to drive a car or ride your bike, you hadn't done it before. You knew you could do it, but you didn't know how you were going to do it because you'd never done it before. So it's the same with a C-type goal. It's great, great idea. You absolutely want it. You're nervous about it, you're scared about it, but you just need to work out how to do it. That's all. So that's what we're going to learn. We're going to learn how to. You set your goal, you set the what it is that you want, and then you're going to learn how to do it. And guess what? When you've decided that you're going to do it, then actually all the resources will pop up. They just have to. They have to come to you. So everything you need, then once you've made that decision, is going to come to you. And we've seen this in the past. How if you think of in the past something's happened and you're going about your day. And I'll give an example. So I was working at Heinz at the time, and because my son wasn't sleeping, I was very, very tired. And because I had to travel down the motorway a few times a month, I was literally falling asleep at the wheel. So I'd asked for a change in job. So they, have a good support. So they changed my job, but then that job got made redundant, and I wasn't really too worried about it, but I only had another 6 or 12 months left on my contract, and then I would have to. I was a single mom, had a young child, so it was playing in the back of my mind, but I wasn't too worried about it. And then this one time, I was actually in London, and I was on the plane back, and I just accidentally happened to bump into one of the directors in purchasing, who said, "Oh, what a guy who I already knew, one of the managers is looking for someone to support him in his team, which actually was in the ocean freight team." And so what happened was that I wasn't too worried about it. My goal was to make sure that I had an income and I could look after my son. And things just happened. And it was actually one of the best jobs I've had. It gave me a lot of flexibility. And so once you start to entertain a new idea and you're open-minded about it, then things will absolutely come to you. They can't not to. And I just said open-minded. So you do have to be open-minded, because on your way to your goal, you have to entertain new ideas. Now, if your mind is closed, you're not going to entertain any of the ideas. You're probably not even going to recognize them. See, the thing is that once you start to think about a goal, then the ideas are going to start popping up as to how you can start to achieve that. Now, the thing is that we become what we think about. Right? All great leaders in all of the world have said, they've disagreed on loads of other things, but they do agree on the fact that we actually become what we think about. So start thinking about that C-type goal, and then guide your thoughts very deliberately and ask yourself how you can do it. Don't give any attention whatsoever to why you can't. So once you start giving your goal some attention, ideas will start to pop up and you'll recognize them, and then you can start to act on them. Now, Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots going backwards. You cannot connect them going forward, but connect they will, right? And they are connecting. Now, ask yourself, take a deep breath, relax. Ask yourself, how would you feel if you achieved that C-type goal that you just wrote down? Something you really wanted, probably didn't think you could have it, but how would you feel if you did have that, if that did happen? And how would that benefit you and the loved ones um, around you? Now, don't you owe it to yourself and to them to just do it, to just go for it? Because why not? And the thing is, actually, that what you'll find is that as soon as you start to more seriously entertain that new idea, that C-type goal, thoughts are going to come up really quickly as to why you can't do it. Right? Now, this is because the law of polarity comes into play. So we talked before about success being based on applying universal and scientific laws. So this is actually one of them. So the law of polarity dictates that everything has an equal opposite. So there is no left without a right. There isn't an up without a down. There isn't an in without an out. I couldn't be inside of this room if something else wasn't outside of this room. There's no hot without cold. There's no light without dark, and so on and so on. And it's those opposites, that polarity, that contextualizes our world, makes it tangible. So this means also, of course, that there is good in everything that we perceive as bad. And tomorrow we will talk about the different parts of our mind and why we label something good or bad or positive or negative. So there is good in everything bad, and there is positive in everything negative. Right? They're just two sides of the same thing. We learn about this in science classes at school, right? Yeah, and tomorrow we'll talk also about how to look for the good in everything and then how to focus on the positive. But what it also means is that in everything that's positive also has a negative. And so this is why when you think of a great idea, very quickly, and it feels like immediately, the negative side also pops up. And we get thoughts about why we can't. But it has to do, right? Because there's a positive and a negative. So both sides are going to make themselves known to you. But now that you know that that is just the law of polarity coming into play, you can consciously and deliberately start to guide your thoughts to the positive, to the how can you do it. And it sounds dead simple, right? But it is way easier said than done. And we'll teach you more about that tomorrow. So we said that success is a system, and I heard a great definition of success from Earl Nightingale, who was actually Bob Proctor's mentor. And again, a lot of material that we teach is based on his insights. So his definition, or I think he may have heard it from somebody, but that definition is that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, moving into the direction of your goal, and you are successful. That's success. Now, a successful person is somebody who is consciously and deliberately doing what he or she wants to do. And it doesn't matter what it is, right? It could be materials things, it could be spiritual things, it could be physical things, it could be money, relationships, health. No matter what it is, a person is successful when they consciously and deliberately choose what they're doing because they want to do it. They are doing it. Now, there's actually only probably about 2 to 4% of people who are truly successful based on that definition and who are really living the life that they want to live. So that's 2 to 4% of the population. That means that 96 to 98% of people are not living the way that they really want to live. And very likely, a lot of us are part of that, right? I'm happy to say that I used to be a part of that 98%, but now I'm not anymore. Now, what it means is that actually, if only 2 to 4% of people are truly successful, then it's quite illogical, isn't it? It's quite strange, quite weird to be successful. So, if being successful is illogical, then we are actually all meant to be successful, but it's illogical to be that. So it means that we have to start doing some illogical things, right, to become successful. Now, ask yourself, are you doing what you want to do? Are you consciously and deliberately doing the things that you really want to do in all sorts of areas of your life, right? But a lot of people, a lot of my clients, we focus on sort of the professional side of things. But it's with anything. Are you doing what you want to do? Are you trading your life? Remember, are you trading your life for what you really want to do? Now, for you to be successful, to live how you really want to live, you're going to have to do some illogical things, right? Don't be following the masses. If you're following what the masses are doing, then you'll be like the masses and you're not living the life you want to live. Now, there is absolutely no limit to what you can do. The only limit that we have is the limit we place upon ourselves. It's in between your ears. It's what you're thinking. So tomorrow we're going to talk about what's holding you back and why and how you're going to change that. And then we're going to get you moving towards whatever your dream is. Now, remember to write down something that you really want. And if you don't know what you really want, then start to think about what that might look like. Now, I don't know what you really want, but I do absolutely know that you can get it no matter what it is. You just have to really want it. So we talked about setting goals, and setting goals are very, very important. It gets us going. But the thing that we have to work on and that we have to change is what we call our paradigm, your blueprint. That's really what has to change for things to change in your life. So I'll show you tomorrow what paradigms are. And not only that, I'll show you how to change them. And remember, you're here, right? You were here today. You've lasted this long. You're here today because you wanted to upgrade your life, because you wanted to make a change. So make sure you tune in tomorrow for day 2, Habits and Self-Image. And we are streaming live again at the same time, 6 p.m. UK, 7 p.m. Central Europe, and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And remember to ask for that workbook if you haven't already got it. See you tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a good one. Thank you.